What's up? Hey everyone, if you don't know me, my name is Caleb. Some of you do know me. It's good to be with you all tonight. We are in our series Basic Training all summer long, and here's what we've been talking about. We've been talking about real people who lived a long time ago with real stories that we can apply to our own life. We've talked about creation. We've talked about Abraham. We've talked about Jacob and Esau. And tonight we're going to talk about someone named Joseph. Raise your hand if you ever heard of someone named Joseph. Well, good. We're going to talk about him tonight. But before we go any further, I want to talk a little bit about me. As just said, my name is Caleb. My wife is named Macy. It's our family photo. This is my wife of 2 years, Macy. And that is our dog, Stormy. He is literally the most spoiled dog you'll ever see in your entire life. It's ridiculous. And then this next picture, this is, I don't know if you can tell, this is my soon-to-be son in another about 19 weeks. His name is Jax. Some people say he's sucking his thumb right there. I like to say he's doing a fist pump, but look at it either way. I'm going to talk about him a little more in a minute, but that's just my family. That's my current life right now. A baby on the way, been married 2 years, have a crazy dog, spoiled to death, and that's just my home life. But tonight, we're going to talk about two things. Two things, hills and valleys. We're going to talk about the high points in life, and we're going to talk about the low points in life. And this ladder is going to represent our hills for tonight. I'm not going to climb this every time, but for a moment, I'm going to climb this ladder for a second. I know for real. This represents hills in our life. These are mountaintop experiences. These are the moments where you feel like God is with you, everything is going great in life. These are the good moments. And I'll be honest with you, when I found out that my wife was pregnant, I literally had gotten back from Haiti that night, and she had told me that she was pregnant, and I was going to winter camp, which some of you may remember, winter camp in like 3 days from then. So like in that moment, I was on top of the world. Like everything was going great. I was on the biggest hill I've ever been on in my entire life. That was a great moment. God, I just knew God, man, God, you were awesome. Thank you so much. You were blessing me. Life was good. But like I'm going to tell you in a little while, this mountaintop, this hill experience quickly became a valley experience in my life. And that valley seemed a lot lower than that mountaintop and that hill experience over there. This valley in my life made me say things like, God, why are you allowing this to happen? God, I thought everything was going good. Why did you send me from way up there all the way to down here? So tonight, we're going to talk about the hills and valleys of life. And we're going to look at the hills and valleys in the story of Joseph. Now, the story of Joseph is a long story. It's a couple chapters long, so I definitely can't read the whole story to you. So here's what I want us to do. In a moment, we're going to let these four people who are talking come up here and read. You want to read? You're good? Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to watch Joseph's story. But here's what I want you to do in this video. It's 4 minutes long. I want you to try to pick out the hills and the valleys of Joseph's life. When you see the story, I want you to say, okay, I can see where Joseph is definitely on a hilltop. Joseph, everything is going good for him right now. That was the good thing. But then also, you're going to notice that there's times in Joseph's story, in Joseph's life, that he was definitely sitting down in a valley, and it was a lot different than that hill. So watch this video and see if you can point out the hills and the valleys of Joseph's story. Okay, so that is the story of Joseph. Were you able to pick out a few hills and a few valleys in that story? Here's what I need. Tonight, I need your participation, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a part of the story, and I need you to tell me if it was a hill or if it was a valley. And we're going to go through his entire story, and we're going to look at the high moments and the low moments of Joseph's story. So here's the first thing. Joseph was his dad's favorite son. Hill or valley? Hilltop? You think that was a hill? Okay, so we think that Joseph had all of his brothers, but yet his dad said, hey, Joe, you're my favorite son. You're not even the oldest son, but you are my favorite son. Hill, do we agree? Yeah. Okay, here's the passage of scripture. Genesis chapter 37, verse 3 says this. Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day, Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe, or as a lot of people know it, a coat of many colors. So his story starts out as a hill, right? His story starts out on the mountaintop. Everything's going good in his life. Does anybody in here younger brother? Or younger sibling, I should say, I'm sorry. Younger sibling? Are you the favorite? Or is the older one the favorite? If you're the younger sibling and you're the favorite, you probably let your older sibling know it every once in a while, right? Like, hey, by the way, I'm mom and dad's favorite. I get whatever I want, whenever I want to get it. That's what all the brothers are thinking. They're like, he's been designated the favorite. The dad literally gave him a piece of clothing to designate, you are my favorite child. So yes, I agree. That was a hilltop moment. But here's the next part of Joseph's life. He was hated by his brothers, and he was thrown into a cistern or an empty well. What do you think, hilltop or valley? Valley. Hated by his brothers and thrown down into basically a pit. I would agree with you. It was a valley. This was a very low point in Joseph's life. Genesis chapter 37, verses 4 through 5 say this. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. Basically, since Joseph was the highest of all the kids, they started to hate him. They couldn't even say a kind word to him. One night, Joseph even had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him even more. So what happens is Joseph has this dream about all of his brothers, and he tells them what it means, and they begin to hate him even more than they already do. I would say it's starting to become a valley in his life. But watch this in verse 18. I would highly not recommend you doing this. When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said. Right, you know, the little brother attitude, like, oh, whoa, here he comes, the favorite of all the kids. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. But when Reuben heard of this scheme, he came to Joseph's rescue. Let's not kill him, he said. Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into this empty cistern here in the wilderness. Then he'll die without our laying a hand on him. Reuben was secretly planning to rescue Joseph and return him to his father. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing. They grabbed him and threw him into the cistern or the pit. Now the cistern was empty. There was no water in it. So they basically throw him down in a well. Low point in life, right? He went from being top dog of all of his brothers and sisters to now they hate him and they've thrown him down in a pit. But now here's the next part of Joseph's story. And let's see if anything changes. They say, okay, we're not going to kill you, but we're going to sell you as a slave. High point or low point in life? That might even get a little bit lower than being just thrown in the pit, right? I would agree. This, again, is another valley. Genesis 37, verse 25 says this. It says, then, just as they were sitting down to eat, so basically they're all gathered up. They've thrown him into the pit. He's down there. They're like, okay, we're good. We've kind of taken care of that problem. We're just sitting down to eat. They looked up and they saw this caravan of camels in the distance coming towards them. It was a group of Ishmaelite traders taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin from Gilead down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain by killing our brother? We'd have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him to those Ishmaelite traders. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. And his brothers agreed. So when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianites, traders, came by, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern and sold him for 20 pieces of silver. Anybody think life's worth a little bit more than 20 pieces of silver? And the traders took him to Egypt. Low point in life, wouldn't you say? If your brother or sister sold you to somebody else, some random stranger on a camel in the middle of the desert. They just see a pack of people come and they're like, that's it. We're going to sell you for 20 pieces of silver. So he's gone from being the favorite of all the kids to being thrown into a pit. And you got to imagine, whenever he looked up and his brothers probably lowered a rope or went down to get him, he was probably thinking, okay, they changed their mind. Life's about to get good. I'm about to get back on that mountaintop of life. And they say, hey, instead of killing you, we're just going to go and sell you. So back into a valley in life. But here's what happens. He's sold into slavery, and he meets this person named Potiphar. And he's given authority, or he's given somewhat of a leadership position under Potiphar. Do you think that's good or bad as a slave? Pretty good? I would say it's better than being thrown into a pit. I would say he's starting to get out of the valley. Do we agree? He's getting a little bit better in life. What do y'all think over there? Y'all think? Yeah? Yes is the answer? Okay. All right, I'm just making sure you're paying attention. So here's the thing. He was sold into slavery, but once he was sold into slavery, he has somewhat of authority given to him. Genesis chapter 39, verses 1 through 9 say this. When Joseph was taken to Egypt, the Ishmaelite traders he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Now, I want you to pay attention to these next couple words. What are these next 5 words? The Lord was with who? And who was with Joseph? The Lord was with Joseph. This is very important in the story. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing, except for what kind of food to eat. Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man, which is going to be important in a second. And Potiphar's wife soon began to notice him, began to look at him lustfully. She says, "Come and sleep with me," she demanded, but Joseph refused. "Look," he told her, "my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God." So all of a sudden, though he was sold into slavery, a valley moment, when the caravan arrives at the city, all of a sudden, he's put into Potiphar's house, and he has some authority all of a sudden. And he's beginning to get back on the high point of life. Things are starting to look pretty good. He even says in that passage of scripture that he has more authority than anyone else outside of Potiphar. And the only thing that he can't have is Potiphar's wife, and rightly so. So life is going really, really well for Joseph at this moment. He is back, I would say, on a hilltop. But I told you that it's kind of important that Potiphar's wife began to look at Joseph. And here's what happens next in his life. He's in charge, he's doing his thing, everything's working well. But all of a sudden, he's wrongly accused. Basically, he got in trouble for doing something he didn't do, and he's just thrown in prison. Hilltop or valley? I think so too. Check this out, Genesis 39, verse 10. She, being Potiphar's wife, she kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day. But he refused to sleep with her, and he kept out of her way as much as possible. He is trying to stay up on the hill. He's doing everything in his power to stay up on the hill. He does not want to be brought down. He does not want to make Potiphar mad. He does not want to commit this act, even to the point of avoiding her as much as possible. Verse 11 says, "One day, however, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. She came and grabbed him by his cloak, demanding, 'Come on, sleep with me.' Joseph tore himself away, but he left his cloak in her hand as he ran from the house." He did the right thing. He completely fled. He did absolutely nothing wrong. When she saw that she was holding his cloak and he had fled, she called out to her servants. Soon all the men came running. Look, she said, my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us. He came into my room to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside and got away, but he left his cloak behind with me. She kept the cloak with her until her husband came home. Then she told him her story. That Hebrew slave you've brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said. But when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me. Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. So he took Joseph and threw him into prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained. He did absolutely nothing to get into this valley right here. Joseph didn't do anything wrong. In fact, he was well outside of doing anything wrong. He avoided things so that it wasn't even a temptation on his part. But he was back in the valley. There's moments in your life that you didn't do anything wrong at all, but you'll find yourself in a valley. You'll find yourself in a low point in life because of circumstances around you. But here's the next part of Joseph's story. Let's see what you think about this one. So all of a sudden, Joseph is in prison, wrongly accused. He's sitting in prison. But for some reason, the prison guard, the guy in charge of the whole prison, likes Joseph a lot. He tends to favor Joseph. You think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Hilltop, valley? I would say so. Though he is down in a valley, he gains trust with his prison guard. And just like he went from slave to being a leadership position in Potiphar's house, he's gone from being a prisoner to someone of some more authority. Here's what it says. Genesis 39, verse 21. What are those first 6 words right there? But the Lord was with who? The Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden, the prison guard, the guy in charge of the prison. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. So the warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. Again, the Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. So he's gone from hilltop to valley to hilltop to valley to hilltop to valley, back to a hilltop again. And let me share with you another hilltop that happens in his story, because for some reason he stays on this hilltop for a little while. Remember earlier in Joseph's story when he had a dream and he told his brothers what it meant and they got mad at him? For some reason, God gave Joseph this gift. God works through Joseph to interpret dreams. And the guy over everything, Pharaoh, was having these dreams. And Joseph was able to interpret these dreams. Genesis chapter 41, verses 14 through 16 say this. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, basically, he's going before the man of most power. Basically, we'd be going to meet the president. We would probably put on some nicer clothes and make sure we look good. He went in and he stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night. No one here can tell me what it means. But I've heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it. It is beyond my power to do this, Joseph replied, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. So what happens over the next couple of verses is Joseph interprets these dreams. We saw it in the video. We saw these different cows, and we saw that there was a fat cow, a skinny cow. We see 7 years of great wealth of food and then 7 years of famine. He tells them what these dreams mean. Verse 37 says, Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man so obviously filled with the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you clearly, no one else is as intelligent or wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a rank higher than yours. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Hilltop or valley? Hilltop. He has literally gone from a slave to over the entire land. He is over all of Egypt. The only person above him is Pharaoh himself. And these dreams come true. Pharaoh's dreams come true in the land. There is a famine. They have 7 years of great food, and you saw in the video that basically Joseph was in charge of all the food. If anybody in the land needed food, they had to come through him to get their portion of food so they could survive, including his brothers. And his brothers come to Joseph. Even after they tried to kill him, they sold him into slavery. And what ends up happening is Joseph not only sees his brothers again, he reunites with them, and he also gets to see his dad again, the dad who favored him amongst every other one of his kids. Hilltop or valley? Hilltop. Genesis, towards the end, says this. Then Jacob said to Joseph, so basically, he's seen his brothers, they've reunited, they've gotten food, the family is finally back together after years. And Jacob, Joseph's dad, is talking to him, and Jacob says this to Joseph, I never thought I would see your face again, but now God has let me see you and your children too. Basically, in this moment, Joseph's dad is telling him, I never thought I would see you again, but not only am I get to see you, but I get to see your kids too. And I could just imagine Joseph having a smile on his face, seeing that God had put him from all these hilltops to all the valleys, back and forth his entire life. And now he's reunited with his dad, the one who's shown him so much favor in life, the one who gave him the coat, and the one the entire story revolves around. But here's the thing. This is the story about a real person. And real people have hilltop moments, and real people have valley moments in your life, just like me and you. So how can we apply this to our life? So I told you earlier in the year, I just got back from a mission trip, found out I was going to have a kid. I thought I'd go to winter camp. Everything was going great. Life was phenomenal. I was on a hilltop moment in my life. Probably one of the highest hills I've ever been on in my entire life. But I told you it quickly became a valley. And here's what happened. I'm not going to go into much detail because it's a bunch of adult stuff that doesn't really pertain to you at this moment in your life. But what happened is we found out my wife was pregnant. We had gone to the doctor. Everything's good. And the baby's healthy. Everything like that. Everything's good with the baby. But we go to the doctor, and then about a week after going to the first doctor's appointment, we get a phone call and says, hey, you don't have any insurance to cover your baby. And I'm like, what does that mean? She said, yeah, your insurance policy doesn't cover any of your pregnancy stuff. So you owe us thousands of dollars over the next couple months before your baby's due. And me and my wife were completely shocked. And to this day, we still have moments that we're in the valley because we have these ginormous bills every single month to pay for this baby. And the baby's not even here yet because we don't have insurance that covers the kid. But let me tell you this. I went from one of the highest moments of my life to a valley because I started questioning God of how in the world are you going to let me go from way up there to way down here like that? Just like this. It happened just in a moment. And I started questioning God. I started asking him, what is your plan through this? But let me tell you this. Over the past, I would say 16 weeks, over the past probably 4 months, I have seen God move in ways that I've never seen him move ever before. God has slowly gotten me out of this valley in my life, this moment of questioning him, what is his plan? And he has put people in my life and resources in my life and has blessed me in ways that I could never explain. Because I know that the Lord is with me. There's never been a bill I haven't been able to pay yet. I've miraculously had enough money every single month. I've had friends and family bless us with gifts we never thought we were going to get. And here's what I want you to realize about life. Yes, there are hilltops in your life. There are great moments. But there are also valleys in your life, moments that are absolutely horrible, and most of the time you didn't do anything to get there. It's when death happens. It's when fights happen. It's when divorce happens. It's when things in life happen that immediately take you from a mountaintop all the way down. to a valley, but here's what you need to realize. You need to realize is that God is the one who set you up on the hill. God is the one who set you on the hill, but God is also the one who is with you when you're down in the valley. And here's how I want us to close tonight. I want to read you these lyrics to a song. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to let you have a moment just to reflect. I just want you to reflect on hilltop moments and valley moments in your life. And you may be on a hilltop right now, or you may be in a valley right now, or you may be right in the middle. Life's just, it's going fine. But I want you to think about those moments. But here's some lyrics to the song we're about to listen to. It says, on the mountains, on those high points of life, I will bow my life to the one who set me there. In the valley, in those low points of life, I will lift my eyes to the one who sees me there. When I'm standing on the mountain, I didn't get there on my own. When I'm walking through the valley, no, I'm not alone. You're the God of hills and of valleys. Did you hear me on that? He is a God of hills and a God of valleys. Just as the Lord was with Joseph during his hills and valleys, from slavery to being a leader, for being hated by his brothers to being the one who rescued his family. The Lord is with him the entire time. Just as the Lord is with Joseph, the Lord is with you. So here's what I want you to do. For the next 4 minutes, I don't want you to talk to anybody next to you. I want you to focus on you and God. For just a few minutes, as we play this video, I want you to reflect on the hills and valleys of your life. I want you to repeat after me. On the hill, I will thank him. On the hill, I will thank him. On the hill, I will thank him. Listen, there's moments in your life where you're going to be on that hill. Those mountaintop experiences, life is great. But it's in those moments we have to realize that we didn't do anything to get ourselves there. God is the one who put us here. And those are the moments that we need to thank him. But also, I want you to repeat this after me. In the valley, I will look to him. In the valley, I will look to him. In the valley, I will look to him. Listen, I'm just going to be honest with you. There's moments in your life that are bad. There's moments in your life where you feel like you are in a valley. But it's in those moments that you look to him and realize that he's the one who is with you still. And he's never going to leave you, forsake you, no matter what you do. Because as a believer, you have God in your life. As a believer, you have the grace of God. You have the love of God in your life. He's with you in those high moments, those moments that you are loving life, but he is right there with you just as much in those low moments where you're hating life. We see it in the story of Joseph. We see it in characters all throughout the Bible. But those are real people with real stories. And so are you. You're a real person with a real story. You're a real person with mountaintop experiences and valley experiences. But God is with you each step of the way. Can we pray? God, I thank you for who you are. I thank you for being my God. And I thank you for being our God. A God of the hills and a God of the valleys. The God who puts me in those great moments of life, and the God who is with me in the not so great moments. And God, tonight I pray that you'll be with us. That God, we are on that hilltop right now. We feel like life is going great. We know you're working in our lives. God, we pray that we will thank you for being there with us. But God, if we're in a valley right now, whatever struggle it is, God, I pray that we will look to you knowing that you are right there with us. You have not forgotten about us. Because God, you are our God. The God of the hills and the God of the valleys. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.